Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It is great to be here. And today we're going to switch things up a bit. We've got a different kind of an interview, and one I think most of you writers are going to be very, very interested in, as well as readers, because you're going to get a look behind the scenes. We've got Joe Brosnan with Grove Atlantic. He's a senior editor there today for us to really kind of delve into not only publishing, but maybe learn a little bit about Joe himself. And so, Joe, one of the things I like to ask is, as a child growing up, were you a big reader? And, were you an introverted kid? Is that what set you on your track to become an editor? Or, how did you end up in this role?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, just thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and kind of talk shop. And I'm looking forward to, helping people and hopefully we can answer some questions out there. But yeah, I mean, I was always a reader. I think that's kind of comes with the territory for most editors. It was an early love. I work now as an adult on pretty much exclusively mystery, thriller, crime, sort of genre fiction. And I don't think that was necessarily what I was reading as a kid. I remember stealing some books off my dad's shelf as I started having more curiosity around like the adult books, and those were like your Stephen Kings or your Grishams or your Lee Child. So I definitely got an education through those sorts of books. But as a kid, like a young kid, I was reading kind of more fantasy, more sci-fi. I was obsessed with Harry Potter, like everyone. And then I was also a big sports fan. So there was this author named Matt Christopher who wrote these like middle grade sports books that I loved. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit of everything, I would say.
But I mean, it's so interesting because you wonder if, somebody grows up and goes, I'm going to be an editor someday. I mean, did you ever have that thought? Like, how did you get set on this path?
Yeah, I remember the light bulb moment for me. I was in college. I was studying journalism. I was studying film writing, and I thought between the two of those, that's where I was kind of destined more as on the writing side of things. Um, and so I would take these creative writing classes, these screenwriting classes, and I learned pretty quickly my favorite days were the workshop days where you read, or other people really were the ones reading, and then we kind of work together to try to help them get out of certain holes they had found themselves in, or just how to sharpen and kind of improve the art. And that was my light bulb. I was like, oh wait, I really like this. I think I'm better at this than I am of actually writing. And then you start thinking about what can I do with this? And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into film. I wanted to go into books, but I got hired by a book publisher and turned down by a film company, and so that my decision was made for me there. And I'm
So
really
was that,
happy with where I've landed. Yeah.
was that right out of college? You went straight from college to a publisher?
No, there was about a year there, the lost year, where I was working at a, kind of a soulless pharmaceutical job because no one was hiring. And it it was a paycheck, I would say, but it wasn't a passion. And then I was able to, about a year later, kind of get a job in publishing. My first job was at St. Martin's Press, and I managed their website, Criminal Element, which was it turned out to be the one of the luckiest things as far as a foot in the door because I wasn't working on specific books. I was really just like helping a variety of authors and not just St. Martin's authors. It was like an agnostic site, public like that covered all authors. So I got to work with a ton of different people and really get a crash course in the genre. Because even though I'd read some of the like classics and the mainstays, I was definitely not up to date and fluent in it. So I spent a couple of years working for that site full time, and then was able to move into a marketing role after that, which has proven to be really valuable because now as an editor, I'm thinking with a marketing hat on, kind of from the point of submission. How do if I like this book, how do I bring it to market? And I'm having those conversations, I think, a lot earlier than some other editors might be. So it wasn't until only maybe 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I started editing at all and full time about 3.5 years ago. So it's relatively new.
Well, my first publisher was St. Martin's Thomas Dunn, and my editor there was Marcia Markland,
I
who
love
to
Marshall.
this day I love. She's one of my favorite people all time.
She's great.
Well, you talked about how when you look at a book, that you're already thinking marketing. So I'm not sure a lot of writers understand exactly what an editor does, but it's not just commas and stuff. I mean, there's a whole lot to it. So let's say a submission comes to you and the book lands on your desk and you start reading it and it's probably been read by other people. So you really should look at this. Okay. So you look at it and you start reading it. What's your thought process? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for, it's almost a moving target at times. But I'm looking for voice is really what I connect with. Just like really clear, crisp voice. I want characters that jump off the page. I want to enjoy my time with them. And ideally, I'm looking for something that's slightly wrinkled, something that's slightly different from the other stuff kind of saturating the market. That's the luxury, I think, of being at somewhere like Grove Atlantic, which is an indie publisher. We're not the same, we're not a big five by design, so we're not going after the super commercial, super cookie cutter stuff. And so I'm looking for things that like everyone wants a locked room mystery, right? And so do I, but I want it to be set somewhere weirder or just at a different time or place, or just give me something slightly different to set it apart from the factory publishers that are kind of doing a ton of them.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned voice first, and we teach writing. That's our job here,
Yeah.
and invariably every class I've ever given, every lecture I've ever given, your voice is the single most important thing you have to develop. Everybody's told your story. Trust me, somebody's told your story, but they haven't told it your way, and so I think that's cool. When you're looking for submissions, do you guys take unagented things? Do you take backlists? Do any of that stuff?
So backlist, we're definitely open to. That's something that I think we're doing a little bit more of lately is identifying opportunities, I think is really what backlist is, right? Because that's how publishers make their money. It's having a deep backlist that doesn't require like front end marketing and spend to sell. So we've acquired some authors who are planning to keep writing, but they had their rights to their entire backlist. So we've bought the rights to 8 books in the past, and we'll continue to publish their new stuff. That's an exciting opportunity when when it works out. As for unagented, that's something we don't accept. Yeah, everything comes through an agent.
Makes sense.
It does, because that's one more kind of gatekeeper. I think it helps the editors. You're getting something that's at least
Yeah,
almost there.
someone's vouched for it, right? And
Right.
the exception to that is if I go to a conference, like I've gone to a lot of thriller fests and heard pitches, and I've gone to some other smaller conferences. And if I hear something and I'm there in an editorial capacity, like I'm open to that because that's the point of a conference is kind of a different path in potentially. But otherwise, if I haven't like personally heard a pitch and met you at a conference, I'm requiring an agent. Yeah.
Have you bought any books from conferences that you've been at? Has that happened?
My first ever acquisition was born out of a Thriller Fest kind of a bar conversation. I actually think this author's part of your crew. Alex Finley. Is that
Oh
his name?
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
We
was my
love we
first.
love Alex.
Yeah, he's awesome. We're good friends still to this day. But
I was
yeah,
in
that was
Dubai with him.
my first acquisition was Alex's book, and
Yeah.
I had been kind of given the green light to edit, even though I hadn't officially become an editor. And Alex had written a couple other books before deciding to become Alex.
Right.
And
Right.
uh,
We knew him,
yeah,
AKA. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Exactly.
helped to make that name. And we were just talking and kind of venting a little bit because it was hard to find quality submissions as someone who's never edited before. How do you get agents to value you or trust you? And he was having his own issues kind of with his previous books that hadn't really quite worked. And we kind of just figured it out. We're like, wait, what if we combined here and bet on each other? And um, it worked out beautifully. I mean, he's now written, I think, 5 or 6
Mhm.
Alex Finley books that have done really well, and I
They're
was able to
fantastic.
frog to a new shiny new job out of it. So um, it's one of those nice from a conference stories. So
That is so cool. And then have you gotten others?
no, I've been close on some that have been scooped out from under me at a Thriller Fest where like I liked the sound of it and I was like reading, but it went somewhere else. But I like the energy that come out of conferences. I think that's why I keep volunteering to go and sit at them and hear pitches, because as to tie it into like the marketing that I think is so important as a writer, as an author, is part of that is also networking and building relationships in the community you're writing in. And conferences are proof to me that you're doing that work. And that's an exciting thing for me to see. So someone who's taking time out of their weekends and spending their hard-earned money to come be vulnerable and pitch strangers, like I like the energy that comes with that. And I like that the chances are, if I'm finding something that I really love out of those conferences, then it's an author who I think can also be an author and the full-time job that it entails.
Well, essentially, Kathy and I were obviously we were both founding members of ITW and ran it and did a lot of stuff for it for a decade and a half. And along with John Land, one of the things that we did was help authors create their pitch, their what if you will. And we
Yeah.
spent, as you saw, big amounts of time in doing this for them. As an editor, and someone sits down and says, I have a book that I'm trying to sell, how important is that 25 words or less just to say, this is my book, and then to shut up and wait for questions? That's kind of how we pitch it. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we're pitching it right.
The advice I give is like, pretend it's not your book. Pretend it's a TV show on Netflix that you want your partner or your best friend to watch. How would you tell them and get them excited? You wouldn't start with like, all right, it's a 7 episode drama. Like you wouldn't.
Right.
And we always start, like, so many pitches start with, it's an 80,000 word thriller. And I'm like, those are wasted words. Like
Right.
I don't know anything about this. The word count doesn't matter to me here. Um, but if it's something like, oh, it's kind of like this show or this book meets this show or this like tent pole staple of pop culture, like that gets me. All right, now I can start honing in on what you're trying to tell me about. And yeah, it's an elevator pitch for a reason. Like
Right.
I'm getting off soon, so tell me the most important part. So yeah, I treat it like you're trying to get your friend excited about the story,
Well,
or
one
the
of the
setting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and one of the challenges we would find, because we obviously would have them pitch to us first, is that people tend to ramble and they'll oftentimes just summarize their first chapter instead
Hmm.
of the through line of the entire
Yeah.
story. So, and that's why we try to limit it to 25 words or less to get them to really make it succinct so that your eyes aren't glazing over.
Yeah. And I mean, the advice I give for a lot of different things is to just kind of steal from people who are doing it well. So go into your bookstore and look at the flaps and see how they're being pitched. It's not word count, right? It's giving me comp titles and interesting, like this things that signal what's unique about this book. Maybe it's the time period or the setting or the character. Um, but and then see how other people are kind of describing their books in their pitch and
Okay.
adapt it to your story.
Now, at Grove Atlantic, Stacy mentioned to us that the crime fiction module or that you're just starting to grow that this is
So,
an area that you're starting to focus on. And from what you said, it sounds like that's what your area of interest is now.
yeah, so I joined Grove about 3.5 years ago. And they've been doing crime fiction for a long time. It's not a new mission,
Right.
but we're now formalizing it, I think is the best way
Okay.
to describe it. So we've been publishing authors like Donna Leone and Mark
Hmm.
Billingham and James Lee Burke and some stalwarts of the genre for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but Grove is more known for its literary fiction and it's like very literary nonfiction work. Lots of award winning and Pulitzers and all like the things that are very impressive to so many readers, but don't really matter that much to crime and fiction and thriller readers, right?
Exactly.
They want the Edgar Award, not the National Book Award. And like I joined and quickly I think identified that the followers we had on social media, the subscribers we had in our email lists, all of our like online data wasn't readers of crime and mystery and thriller books. They were there for more of the literary stuff. So when we tried to promote our own crime, it didn't really resonate with the audience that they had gathered already. So the idea was to build a new sandbox for us to play in, specifically with the crime fiction people. And it's been really exciting. And kind of since I've joined, I've brought in a bunch of new voices trying to find some debuts and emerging writers who can do this thing for the long haul. That's very much what I'm looking for, are authors to
Tell
build
us,
relationships with.
can you
And
tell us a little bit about some of the things you're working on, some of your new writers?
yeah, so first book I'll talk about was a book we published last year called Holy City. We had some nice success with it. It won the Edgar Award for Best First Novel, which was really exciting. It's a Southern crime novel set in Southside Virginia. Um, and here's like to go bring it back to voice, right? I get so many submissions that are, Southern Gothic, small town, sheriff, police procedural type of book. Um, there's a lot of them out there, and there are already a lot already out there being published successfully. Henry writes beautifully in a way that I thought set him apart from anyone else I'd gotten in this world, in this like subgenre, as well as maybe any submission I'd been getting. Um, he's a lyricist, he's a poet, like he's just a really good writer. And so I fell in love with it kind of on page one. I was like, this guy has it. And the story needed work and we had to edit it quite a bit. But that was a really rewarding experience. I'm editing his second book right now. Should be coming out next year. So that's been a nice early success. But then to go into the other side, that's more of my literary side. I published a book called The Treasure Hunters Club last year, kind of a cozy adjacent seaside small town mystery, pirate treasure and locked rooms and like hidden secrets and like found book inside of a book. There's a lot of different things going on with it. We were kind of pitching it as the Goonies for the modern age or something like that. And it was a lot of fun. It was a book designed to be read as fun, and it's been quite successful. So there's a spectrum, and I'm not looking for super gritty only literary crime. I'm not looking for lighter, cozier exclusively. It's kind of, you can run the gamut. I'm just looking for stuff that's really well done. And the Treasure Hunters Club was that. You get a lot. I think there's a lot of books kind of in the spawning out of the Richard Osman success, the Benjamin Stevenson success, where readers have identified that times are a little tough right now. We want to escape. We want to have fun. And a lot of those books, the submissions that I see come in with like titles that are fun and quirky and characters that are kind of quirky, but they don't stand after you start digging for depth in the characters. They feel a little shallow. They feel a little vanilla. And what Tom did with the Treasure Hunters Club, Tom Ryan's the author, he created really lived-in world already with characters that felt like real people. And so yeah, so those are kind of two examples from the last year that have been out. Yeah.
I was just going to say, one of the things that really warms my heart is the fact that when you could see that a writer has it, you were willing to work on that book with them, even though you had to do quite a bit of editing. And that's wonderful to hear, because so often, if there's any reason for an editor to say no, they just say no. And so it's nice to know that there are editors like you out there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we exist. And I think what's tough is like fighting against the many submissions in my inbox, right? I'm getting dozens a week at least. And so timing is inevitably a part of the equation. And that's probably the most frustrating part for, a hopeful writer or an agent, because there's no way to know if you're sending it in a good week or a bad week to me. I don't have like a status attached to my inbox. Some weeks the timing is just so bad. I'm in 9 meetings and it's just like it's gonna get pushed to the bottom, and then maybe I just missed the boat on something that I would have loved. Like I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah.
I try my best to be diligent, stay on top of my submissions, but it's an imperfect science. But yeah, I know right away if the writing's there after a few pages for the most part, and then we see how the plot goes. And sometimes we can fix it, and it's not like it's an exciting edit. And sometimes it's like, okay, the writing's good, but the story isn't the story that needs to be told. And that's usually a pass. But if I'm genuine there, I'll say like, please submit to me again on the next project or something like that.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. Still
Yeah.
encouraging the writer. That's so important. Joe Brosnan, it's been wonderful to have you on Get to Know. Please tell us you'll come back. We'd love to hear more about what you're working on, what's coming
Anytime.
up.
Yeah.
It's fun to kind of let our viewers be on the inside and see, some things that you might be getting ready to release. And we'll have to talk more about that. Love to have
Yeah. plenty more to plug. And then yeah, if there's interest from the people at Outliers for more of this, like I'm happy to like take questions and do it a different way next time too.
Awesome. Oh, we would love that. Absolutely.
Just
And I
let me
want to
know.
ask our viewers to please click the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithms and gets these interviews out in the world. Thank you. And please subscribe. It's free to subscribe. Just click the button, and that way you won't miss any of our interviews. And I'll throw it back to you, Doug.
Joe, thanks. This has been a pleasure, and it's good meeting you and getting to chat with you. And I wish you all the success at Grove Atlantic. In fact, I want to talk to you about a couple of things, but we'll talk about
Great.
that later. So that wraps up this episode of Get to Know here on the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series. And until then, we will be back with other interviews and other fun stuff. So keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and try not to get caught.